Hello and welcome to another episode of ALUM Pod organized by the Alumni Committee of SVKM'S Dr. Bhanuben Nanavati College of Pharmacy. Today we have Dr. Chintan Bhavsar with us, one of our esteemed alumnus, who is currently working as a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Queensland, from where he pursued his PhD in cancer nanotherapeutics. He pursued his master's in pharmaceutics and drug design and his B.Pharm from our very own BNCP. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. Just a very basic question. How did you decide that pharmaceutics was the mainstream for you in masters? Because currently being in third year, it's very confusing one whether to go in the research field or the marketing field or the business development field. So can you let me know about how you chose your stream?
I think when it comes to a stream, it is okay if you are confused. But one of the primary thing that I always tell my colleagues and also students, that if you are confused whether they want to go for a PhD or a research career, you always want to imagine yourself is if you wake up in the morning excited, if something is waiting for you new today, uh, and that new something is basically research, and how would you troubleshoot all the problems that you have faced the previous day, then research is the field for you. It is something that should encourage you to get up. For someone who is lazy like me, this has been the motivation.
Okay, so motivation is to get up and start with something new every day.
Yeah. And that's the answer. It could be research, it could be anything. If you are lazy or if you love to sleep, and I think everyone does love sleeping,
Right.
and if that things makes you jump out of bed, then that is the profession that is there, that is for you.
Okay, so while you were at BNCP, I'm sure you know that BNCP has many extracurricular activities like RX, Parishodna. So anything that you think that taking part really helped with developing a certain kind of skill set that you developed during your time at BNCP?
I think I was majorly involved in organizing committees of various conferences, and I also took part in Parishodna. So what it is that it trains you to be more communicative and how to present your ideas well, and it also helps you to manage a team. And these are the core uh, skills that you want during your research or any other profession per se, to excel in any field. So I would really recommend any of the juniors to always participate in such kind of activities where you are managing a team of your colleagues, or you are involved in delegating several tasks, talking to several presenters who are going to present during the conference. That would really up your profile and also your overall experience.
So when you took part in Parishodna, so how did you choose your topic, like a poster presentation topic, basically?
So, Parishodhana, we were given a topic, an industrial problem on the spot, and we were given, I think, 30 odd minutes to think about the solution. And my partner and my teammate, that is Madhvi, and we had 30 minutes to think about the solution. So that's it for Parishodhana. But when it comes to poster presentations and stuff like that, I always had my favorite topic in mind, that is cancer. I always wanted to research in cancer. So be it any poster presentation, any oral presentation, I always used to talk about cancer.
Okay. So I have personally heard from a lot of our professors that you are the research gem of our college.
Uh,
So
just being kind.
yeah. So while you were in BMCP, so how did you go about finding a topic, approaching a teacher, working on it? So can you explain, like if somebody is confused on how to choose a topic, how to go about it?
Yeah. So I think my supervisor, Munira ma'am, was one of the major person who lifted me up, and I think no one else could have done that better than her. She essentially gave me the wings that I required to fly. So most, I would say not most, but all of the credit goes to her of whatever position I am at. Coming to how to select the topic, you usually approach the topic by what your interest is. But more than that, you always want to look at the bigger picture and see what clinical problem you are solving. For example, today you could, there are thousands of problems in a particular field, but
Yeah.
if that particular problem is not going to land up in the clinic, we as pharmacists or researchers are not doing a good job. So whenever you want to select a topic, you always want to ask a question: is your research going to solve a clinical problem? It is okay if that research won't solve the clinical problem tomorrow itself, but even if that research contributes to a bigger picture, a part of that, and you are sure that that will contribute significantly to the existing knowledge, then that is the research topic you want to go for.
Okay, so at times, like even in our batch, a lot of people are doing review articles, research papers, but there are only certain ones that get published in certain books or references. So, how do you make sure, like, what are the important things that you make sure while doing a research paper or a review article that help in publication?
So let's break this into two parts. So the first one, let's talk about review paper. So when it comes to review paper, I have seen a lot of students. What they do is they just collate data from several publications, and they that review articles lack the expertise in it. So a very raw example I could give you right now is, for example, if you are making a review on nanoparticles and you are reviewing several papers. So what I've seen is a lot of students, what they do is, let's say people are working on gold nanoparticles. They just write that this was the nanoparticle size, 50 nanometer nanoparticle size. It gave me 50% cytotoxicity compared to normal drug. And then that's how they review a paper, which is good, but that is not something what a reader is looking for. A reader is looking for something that is more of your interpretation as an expert. So, for example, if a research paper you are referring to is talking on how to synthesize a nanoparticle, what are the factors that they specifically investigated to control the size, then you want to summarize the whole research article into a review paper in short, one or maximum four sentences, and you want to write what are the specific parameters that a reader should look at to make sure that the nanoparticle that they wish to synthesize falls under the criteria that they want. So you don't want to just write that this stuff gave me this many nanometers of the particle. You rather want to write what is responsible for that nanometer. So if you basically collate all the review research articles in a way that gives your reader more insights into the research that you're reviewing rather than just smashing in the numbers. So that will ensure that your review paper goes into much higher impact journals. Now,
Okay.
coming to research article, it always boils down to one question. Whatever research are you doing, is it solving a clinical problem or not? Or is it contributing to the existing literature or not? Is it addressing the knowledge gap that you have identified? If specifically if your research addresses this question, then it would very easily go into a very good journal. But apart from identifying the problem, you also want to make sure that you prove your point using several different techniques. So, for example, if you are using microscopy as one of your, or maybe let's say TEM,
Hmm.
or to show that your nanoparticle is 50 nanometer in size. So, apart from that, you also want to use other techniques, for example, zeta sizer to show it is actually 50 nanometer in size, and maybe also use other imaging techniques, um, and maybe also use, if for example if you are working with metallic nanoparticle, you also want to show it's that they are truly metallic and actually have the metal using XRD, So essentially, collate several different techniques to prove one single point, and that will raise the robustness of your results, and thus will also increase the impact of your of your research.
Okay. So basically, you have to be as organic as possible, and your results have to be accurate and checked in order to
Yeah,
get. Okay.
yeah.
So,
So although, for example, if you do, we always do biological replicates n equal to 3, n equal to 4. But the thing is that if you support that biological replicates with additional techniques and that brings down to the same conclusion, then that gives the reviewer or the journal editor that whatever you have produced is not by fluke and it's not by coincidence because you have used several techniques to prove the same point.
okay. So basically, you like make sure that the person who's editing knows that whatever you have done is well, you've evaluated it before you've put it out there. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for the great tip. So now going to your masters. So how did you choose that you want to do masters in pharmaceutics and drug design and not in medchem, quality assurance, or any other subject?
Uh, I always wanted kind of a free will to whatever I want to pursue. So if I had, obviously, if I had been in quality assurance, I would have to do more kind of method development for,
Correct.
using HPLC and other techniques. But I think in whatever experience I had back then, I thought that QA would somewhere restrict me. I didn't choose medchem because I'm not good with structures, although Tabassum ma'am was there.
SAR.
But then my brain doesn't dissolve structures. It's just too hydrophobic for them. Coming to pharmacology, I I hate animal studies, although I do them over here, but I try to move as far as from animals as much as I can. So I think pharmaceutics was the go-to field for me because I really liked a more kind of targeted delivery approach, and
Correct.
I always wanted to work towards more kind of immunology part. And at that time, targeted delivery to, for example, macrophages or other immune cells, tumor cells, to modulate the immune system was kind of a hot topic. So I was like, that is the field that I want to go for.
Okay. So during your masters, how did you make sure that did you do any extracurricular research or any extracurricular skill set development that helped you in your PhD as well as your master? So anybody who's planning to take pharmaceutical sciences as his masters, what are the skill set that he requires or he should have in order to continue this master's process?
I think like masters would be the first time you are actually independently going to drive your research. So as such, as soon as you enter masters, it is not expected from the students that they have all the skill sets that are required for research. In my opinion, the only skill set that you want is that you want to be persistent. If you have negative results in your research, which you will have daily, you don't want to quit. Obviously, you can sit in the corner and cry with your friends. That is okay. But you don't want to quit. You want to approach the problem in a more optimistic way. And it again boils down to the same thought that I shared in the beginning is that if it motivates you to get up from the bed in the morning,
Yeah.
then it is the field for you. So persistence, I think, is the one of the skill set that would help you throughout the research, be it master's, be it PhD, or be it postdoc.
Okay. So, after doing the master's in Sutix, you chose to do PhD in cancer nanotherapeutics. So, can you let
Yeah.
me know how these two are interlinked and what made you? So, you always as said that cancer was always your preference. So, how was the process like from shifting to India to Australia to Queensland? And why did you choose to do a PhD in cancer therapy, nanotherapeutics?
So let's break this down into two parts. So one is when I was enrolling for my master's in India, I always wanted to do something in immunology. But sometimes it is not possible that if you are in applied field like pharmacy, you cannot go towards the basic research. Um, so although the lab where I pursued my PhD is called as cancer nanotherapeutics, but it does a lot of immunology work. So when I was being interviewed or when I met the supervisor, although I was more thinking to work on nanoparticles field, but when I actually started my PhD over here, it was more immunology based. So that is what I
Okay,
always wanted to do. So it has really been great. I'm only working on immunology. Nanoparticles is just the name of the lab, but whenever you come outside India, they have a certain part of fund allocated to the research where you can
correct.
actually explore, and it doesn't have to be like one single path. So I took the advantage of that and I made sure that I go towards a complete basic biology, immunology that I also wanted to pursue. The other question that you had was how I approached the supervisor, correct? So luckily, my supervisor, I met her at a conference in India. So there was a
Oh,
conference at
wow.
ACTRAC, that was Indo-Australian conference. However, if there is nothing, if you are not as lucky as me, one of the thing what you could do is you want to curate your resume and a CV in such a way that that supervisor you are applying under feels like you have especially made that CV for that person. So you want to make sure you read the background of the lab, you read the background of supervisor, the type of research that they are doing. Then you want to make sure that you write an email to the supervisor, addressing specifically that supervisor, and write what skill sets you have, what research you have done in your master's or bachelor's, and what type of guidance you are looking for, and what type of clinical problem you want to address. The main thing over here is when you write an email, you especially want to write the clinical problem out here, because that is what
Okay,
will show to the supervisor that you are actually wanting to solve some real world problems and not just approaching the research in an academic fashion, which is usually good. But then getting a scholarship when you are not solving a clinical problem gets a bit difficult. Now, a second part to it is to get a scholarship for your PhD or your master's, you first always want to convince the supervisor who you want to work under that you are the right fit for the lab. So if you are able to convince that person, then 99% you have the scholarship in your hand. So writing the email and getting a reply from the supervisor because they are really busy is one of the primary challenge.
correct.
And I have been guiding students since past few years, I would say 1 or 2 years, and there have been
Wow.
some of the BNCP alumni itself who I have guided, and they are actually pursuing PhD in US right now, and some of them are also
Okay,
pursuing PhD in Australia with full scholarship. So I think I can help definitely the juniors and go through them one by one, personalized guidance to see how I can help them, because
correct.
Munira ma'am has obviously given me a lot of wings.
Yeah.
And she has given me how to approach a supervisor. She has taught me that. And I'm essentially continuing her tradition and teaching students of how you would approach a problem and even a supervisor to make sure you have a good position in your hand.
Okay, so you mentioned about a good CV, a good resume, and scholarships. So, what are the things that you think someone who is applying for research should have in his or her CV resume? And just the example of the scholarships that suppose say your university gives. So, any tips on that, how students can enhance their CV?
One of the very important thing is to recognize, to realize, or to decide very early on whether you want to pursue a PhD or not. whether you want to go into research field or not. If you want to, then you want to make sure that you develop your CV step by step. Your CV won't skyrocket. It's always
Correct.
uh, it's always a slow growth. So for example, if you are in bachelor's, when I was in bachelor's, I was very sure that I want to do PhD. So when I was in bachelor's, I took uh, voluntarily research with Tabassum ma'am, and we presented our research in Avishkar. And I think
Oh,
we bagged
that's
the third prize for that. So we
that's
started building on research in a very small. So where I did 6 months of research in my bachelor's, that was voluntarily. And then I moved on to my master's, where we have 1 year of research in our curriculum. And after that, I moved into BARC. That was a 2 year research period. So I slowly increased my research part of the resume, and that helped
okay.
me get the scholarship. And apart from that, I also published several review papers with several colleagues in India. So that helped me give a competitive edge to compared to the other students applying for the scholarship. So whenever you want to pursue a particular field, you want to make sure you start slowly building up your resume. It won't become overnight. So I would say suggest start with small research, be more inquisitive, be more persistent is what you require.
Okay, so one of the best thing about BNCP is that like even from the undergraduate level, they do help us with the research aspect as well when you approach a mentor. So I noticed that after your master's, you did more of research in India before applying for PhD. So is that a necessary thing? Like you take a period of time, do your research, get to know more, and then pursue your PhD, or directly after completing your master's, you can pursue PhD.
You can definitely go pursue a PhD directly after masters, and I have seen a lot of students, Indian students, going on that track where they did a masters and they directly got a PhD. Uh, when I was working as a research associate at BRC and at BNCP, I was exploring more because I wanted to strengthen more my resume more. And one of the reason why I was strengthening more is because I was more targeting towards basic research. And when you are shifting from pharmacy to a basic research, getting a scholarship becomes more challenging. So that is why I decided to give a more competitive edge to my resume. However, if you, for example, if you are doing pharmaceutics and you want to pursue your PhD in pharmaceutics, then you can definitely go for a PhD after masters directly.
Okay. And you also mentioned that you guide students or mentor them for the ones who are planning to go for research. So how does
Yeah.
that work?
So I basically, it's kind of a one-on-one guidance session.
Correct.
So what I do is a student approaches me, they tell me what they are specifically looking for. I ask them to send their CV to me. Then a lot of students have a lot of redundant things in their CV. For example, your marks and grades from your HSC, SSC, they are not required at all, because once you move top to the ladder, it doesn't matter of how you
Matter. Yeah.
performed in your HSC and SSC. So things like that, remove the redundant things. Make sure you frame the sentence correctly so that you show that you are the driving force in doing a particular task rather than writing it in passive form. You want to write more into active form. When you apply for a job, it's different, and when you apply for a research, it is different. So the template that BNCP might have is more kind of placement driven, and that usually doesn't work for research positions abroad, PhD or postdoc. So you want to tailor your resume in a way that the reader who is reading your resume feels like it is especially made for them. That will make them more
Okay.
special, and they will feel that you are giving more efforts into it, and therefore you are more involved and wanting to pursue that position more.
Okay. So you chose to do research, continue your PhD in Australia. like a lot of our students also go to USA. So how did you decipher whether to pursue in Australia, USA, or stay back in India? Any
Uh,
specific reason?
Yeah, so the thing is, no hatred towards particular country, but I feel that in the US, the one of the first point that I didn't like is when you start pursuing your PhD over there, you have to go through rotations, lab rotations. Obviously, that is a good experience where you get to network with a lot of supervisors. But then I feel that you are kind of investing more first year of your research into that lab rotations,
Hmm.
which is good, but I was very sure that I want to do in cancer, so I didn't want to opt for that. The second part I didn't go for the US is because it also have 1 year of coursework, and I don't like theory. You can ask Munira ma'am about it, how much she knows, how much I hate theories. So Australia doesn't have 1 year of coursework, so that is why it was a cherry on the cake for me. I entered Australia and I directly started working in the lab. So that was another one. Also, if you go into other countries like Europe or the US, for example, the PhD tenure over there is not fixed. It can extend beyond 5 years as well. And
Correct,
that is
yeah.
basically because the funding or the scholarship or the living stipend that you are receiving is from the supervisor. Whereas in Australia, the funding that you receive, that is the scholarship, is directly from the government. So the government has put a hard full stop that we won't support any student beyond 4 years. If you want to continue
Okay.
your PhD beyond 4 years, then you have to pay out from your own pocket. So then it's kind of you have to finish your PhD in 4 years,
In
and you
four
can move
years.
to a yeah, and you can move to a higher position, which gives you better pay and also a better exposure. So this was the prime reason why I chose Australia, apart from my luck of meeting my supervisor at Indo-Australian Conference.
Correct. So what was the process like? So like I mean, when you shifted to Australia, there of course has to be pros and cons being an international student, international
Yeah.
fellow. So, why did you choose University of Queensland? First of all, supervisor, correct. But any specific reason why Australia, like you chose Australia where to do your PhD basically?
I think I wasn't looking for a specific country or a specific university. I was basically more looking for the type of project that I will do for
Okay,
next 4 years. So I loved the project of what I discussed it with my supervisor, and that was the driving force to choose a university. I never even looked, for example, what is the rank of the university in the whole country, like the worldwide rank. I liked the project. After I got the scholarship, I actually went there and looked at the rank of the university, for example. So university is never the driving force for me. And I would suggest everyone to rather not look at the university, but look at the professor or the supervisor you would work under. Because it's like you are marrying the supervisor for 4 years, and you
correct.
don't want that supervisor to be unsupportive or, you know, a toxic person, because that would make your life hell for that 4 years and probably beyond that as well. So you want to look at the quality of the research, the what type of a person, how good that supervisor is also, and then choose that lab. Only then look at the university, because you could be in a university, for example, rank 1,000 in the world, doesn't matter. But if the supervisor is good, then you are in the correct hands. But if the supervisor is not good, then even if you are in Harvard, it would still make your life hell.
Okay, so when you went to US, Australia, did you give any entrance or any English proficiency test that was required as IELTS
Yeah.
or any?
So, for example, Australia doesn't have GRE, which the US has, and the US is slowly scraping GRE off as well.
Yeah,
But
they have.
you have to give English proficiency test, and I appeared for TOEFL at that time.
Okay. So currently you are the postdoctoral research fellow. So what is your like job basically, or what do you do on a daily basis? What
So,
does this include basically?
it's basically I'm involved in managing the lab. Apart from that, I'm also involved in teaching the new PhD students or masters or undergrads whoever come in. So and so these are the primary responsibilities apart from driving the projects that I'm heading in the lab. So as a postdoc, as a PhD, depends on how other labs work. Our lab as a PhD had two primary projects. um, but when you come to postdoc, that projects could increase to five or six, depending on how the lab works. So it is essentially PhD, postdoc is kind of a promotion from a PhD where your
Okay,
salary increases, but your work load also increases
also
exponentially.
increases.
So when you do your PhD, you want to learn how to manage your time, and that would really help when you pursue your postdoc.
Okay. So any tips, any suggestions that you would like to give the current students, any topic you want to cover that will help the kids at
I
BNCP?
think I would basically speak first in general, overall, is that any of the student, whoever who wants to pursue anything in the career, they want to be persistent. Now, when it comes to research, you will definitely find a lot more challenges. Uh, you always want to ask um, whether approaching a challenge, how much worth it is. Because in a research, you will find a lot of different problems that you want to solve. But if it doesn't address a clinical solution, then you don't want to waste your time on it. And I just want that students be more persistent. And whenever they are applying for a research position abroad, writing a review paper, writing a review article, writing a research article, you always want to ask yourself a question that if you were the reader, would you want to invest your time in this? For example, if you are adding SSC and HSC mark, if you as a supervisor are reading, do you really care whether the student has scored 50% or 90% HSC? If the answer is
No,
no,
that's
don't
not.
put in your resume. If you are writing a review article, do you really care that the nanoparticles are 50 nanometers in size, or you care about how to make that nanoparticles 50 nanometer in size? If the answer is the second one, then don't care about the answering, including the first part in your review article. And similarly in research as well, does it solve a clinical problem? If it does, then only do pursue that field. Otherwise, don't waste your time, because your time is more important than the money.
Okay. So that is it. I think we are at the end of the session. Uh, Anything else you would like to add?
I think basically it is good. Any of the students can definitely approach me if they need guidance in case of career opportunities, or how to approach for a PhD, a postdoc, or in any career related stuff. I'm happy to answer them. Definitely. The rest is depends on what you guys think would be the best.
Correct, correct, correct. Okay. So thank you so much for giving your time and removing time from your schedule. I wish you the best in your career. And if you ever visit India, please do come to college and meet the teachers and professors. And thank you so much for your time.
Definitely. See ya. Bye.
Bye.